she's taking me to the hospital, and I get in the door. And so they brought me in, and they were like, okay, take him right to this room. And finally the nurse came in, and she's like, oh, what's going on? And she started a line on me. And by the time she started a line on me, I was like, I feel like I'm going to pass out. Next thing I know, I feel a shock, and I couldn't see anything. And I was like, who the F just defibrillated me? The doctor, I guess there was me, the nurse, and my girl in the room. The last thing I remember. Now there was probably like 20 people in there. Doctor was like, yeah, it's me. And he's like, don't go into VFib again. And I won't. And then I was like, did my heart stop? Again, that's the first thing I thought. I was like, did my heart stop? And they're like, yeah. And then, then it became really real. And then I was like, oh my God.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Today we've got Danny chatting with us today. Morning, Danny. Let me unmute you real quick.
Good afternoon. I guess it's morning for you.
Yeah, where are you? Where are you at? You're on the East Coast, is that right?
Yes, I'm in Central Florida, actually Oviedo, but it's just about 20 minutes from Orlando.
How did you guys get affected by the big hurricane that came through, or are you guys doing okay?
Yeah, we got lucky. It shifted south overnight, so we got a bunch of rain, about 3 or 4 feet of rain. I had to drain my pool twice, about 2 feet each time, so it got a lot of rain.
Got it. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're doing okay. I guess some people down on the kind of towards Naples and stuff like that got beat up pretty bad. Sounds like so.
Oh, they took it pretty good.
Yeah. Well, anyway, welcome, Danny. Thanks for being. I know you've been here. You've been in meetings gazillions of times. So, I guess for people that aren't familiar, can you give us a little bit about your background?
Born and raised in Miami. Came up here to Central Florida for a fire department job, and was planning on going back to Miami, and noticed it was a lot better up here in Central Florida than Miami. So I stayed up here, did about 20 years in the fire department, a couple in one department, and ended up in city of Orlando, where I had to retire out from a medical issue.
Yeah, I guess that's something you wanted maybe just to touch on. So you had some medical issues. What were the nature of those, if you don't mind?
I had a massive heart attack in 2016, where my LAD was 100% blocked, and actually my heart stopped at the hospital, where it took they coded me for 7 minutes to get me back, and then yeah.
Wow. How old were you at the time?
39 years old.
Wow, that's young for a heart attack for sure. So, any thoughts any indication as to why that occurred? Was there anything prior to that would give you a hint that was going to happen?
Well, looking back on it, I had there was 4 bouts of pain that I had right in the center of my stomach, and the whole time I thought it was gastritis, because I've had that before, but it was definitely a lot worse, like 10 times worse than the gastritis that I had before. And every time was when I was working out. Like first time happened was when I was in jiu-jitsu. We had a hard workout, and I felt like super weak. I had that pain, and then I laid down right after class, and it took about 30, 45 minutes to go away. And then I kind of didn't feel right the rest of the day. And all the other times that it happened, it was in about a 2-week span. It was when I was working out, like my daughter's class for jiu-jitsu. I was helping teach, and I had that pain again, just playing around with the kids. And I think 3 times in jiu-jitsu, and then another time was at work, where we actually had a fire, and I got done with the fire, and I was just totally spent. The final time was I was at home, and I hadn't worked out and those really hard in those couple of weeks, and I was like, man, I got to get a workout in. So I put the insanity workout in, and that pain was just, oh God, I've never felt anything like that. And I got a super high pain tolerance, and that floored me. My girl was at work, and I called her up, and I'm like, hey, and I guess she could tell from the tone of my voice, and I never asked for help. I was like, hey, can you take me to the hospital, because I just don't feel good. So she's driving on to the hospital. And the whole time I'm thinking it's my stomach, because I had called in sick within those 2 weeks at work because I wasn't feeling good. And then I went to an urgent care, and they thought the same thing. They thought it was my stomach. So they gave me some stuff for my stomach, and it always lasted about 30, 45 minutes, somewhere around that area. And so I get down to the hospital, she's taking me to the hospital, and I get in the door, and, I guess the nurses saw me, and they might have not looked good. So they brought me in, and they were like, okay, take him right to this room. And then, it was just me and my girl in the room. And finally the nurse came in, and she's like, oh, what's going on? And I told her what was going on. And she was like, all right, we're going to run some tests. And she started lying on me. And by the time she started lying on me, I was like, I feel like I'm going to pass out. Then next thing I know, I feel a shock, and I couldn't see anything. And I was like, who the F just defibrillated me? And then the doctor, I guess there was just me, the nurse, and my girl in the room. The last thing I remembered. Now there was probably like 20 people in there. And the doctor was like, yeah, it's me. And he's like, don't go into VFib again. And I won't. And then I was like, did my heart stop? Again, that's the first thing I thought. I was like, did my heart stop? And they're like, yeah. And then, then it became really real. And then I was like, oh my God. So then they got me, they put me in an ambulance because there was no cath lab at that hospital, shipped me out to another hospital, which was like 15 minutes away, 20 minutes away. Did a cath, found out it was 100% block LAD. I had some collateral circulation, and then I spent ICU time.
Wow. Well, that doesn't sound very fun. So, no. I mean, and you mentioned because you're in the fire department, and generally there's physical fitness standards, and of course you've been doing jiu-jitsu. I guess you're a black belt now, so you've been doing this for a number of years. Regular exercise, reasonably fit person. They probably wouldn't have suspected heart attack, just looking at your presentation. Typically, I mean, other than some of the pain which they discovered. So, I mean, why do you think you had a heart attack at 39? Was there some other indication was going on, or what was going on there? You weren't like a chain smoker or nothing like that, right?
No. What the doctor said why they thought it happened was I had a familial hypercholesterolemia. Mm-hmm. And, but what I think was the problem was lack of sleep and my diet, really. Cause I would have 0 to 8 hours of sleep or whatever it was. And I would go to jiu-jitsu. It didn't matter. I would just go first thing, get off in the morning and go to jiu-jitsu. And my sleep, I was never really a good sleeper, and I would just push through it, being too tough for my own good, And diet wise, I mean, I would literally work out 2 or 3 times a day to try to lose weight, and I'll do 2 days, 3 days just so that I lose weight. And I never really knew about diet. All I knew was, eat chicken and brown rice and salads and stuff like that to lose weight. And, I never could stick to that for too long.
So, I mean, I just want to go back because you said the doctor said you had familial hypercholesterolemia, which would indicate that you had very high cholesterol. Was that something that was known prior to this event? Had you had blood work prior to it?
Yeah, I actually I found some paperwork that I had, and I wrote a little, my labs throughout the years, and like bad numbers and stuff like that. And I didn't know much about cholesterol at the time, and I was never really taught that cholesterol was so important. They went over the numbers with me, and they would fluctuate from year to year. Like 1 year would be okay, the next year it wouldn't be, and then a couple of years will be bad, and the next year would be okay.
So, I mean, just ballpark, I mean, were you like hovering above and below 200 typically, or what, milligrams per deciliter? Do you remember the numbers?
Yeah, I got them written down right now. My highest total cholesterol was 349. Yeah. My highest triglycerides were 355. Mm-hmm. My highest LDL was 333, but I averaged around 150 LDL throughout the years I was working. My HDL, the highest it was 61, but I averaged between 40 and 50. Mm-hmm. But then after I started CarnivoreDiet, it totally changed for sure. Everything. But those were my numbers during that time, and then they never did like a fasting insulin or a CRP or anything like that.
Yeah. So I mean, it was, so total cholesterol was anywhere between 200 and 330 or something like that. It sounds like based on those numbers. Yeah. Okay. So they say you got high cholesterol, you have a heart attack, and you feel that maybe not. The diet. Now you're wearing a Gracie Barra shirt. I see that jiu-jitsu, and they have the Gracie diet is a sort of pseudo plant-based diet. It's not vegan or anything like that, but I think did you ever subscribe to that particular philosophy or try that stuff?
I actually bought the book after all the stuff happened to me, but I bought so many other books to try to research of why or what to eat. And which is crazy because the initial cardiologist that I went to, I asked him, I was like, okay, this is the point in time really got to figure out diet. And then I asked him, he's like, oh, just go look on the internet and just find a diet there. He didn't give me any direction or anything like that. I was like, you got to give me more than that. And he's like, well, the best diet you can get is the Mediterranean diet. But you could just tell that, he just didn't know what he was talking about. And so, but when I bought the Gracie book, a buddy of mine had told me about the vegan diet. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, he's like, go watch Forks Over Knives and you'll see how it's going to help you. So of course I'm like, I'll do anything at this point. You get your back to the wall, you'll do anything. So I go watch Forks Over Knives and I'm like, okay, well, if I got to eat, I've always been told vegetables are good for you. So I was like, if I got to eat vegetables, so be it, because I can't let this happen to me again. So I go on the vegan diet, for about a year. I had torn my ACL in jiu-jitsu while I was on the diet. And I was in a move where I've been in there a ton of times and I should never have torn anything. And it just like exploded my ACL. And after that, I was like, man, and I just never felt good, never had the energy. All my joints always ached. And I'm like, I really got to do this research on my own. So what I started to do is actually using a little common sense. I would still go by the firehouses every once in a while because I still play the bagpipes. And then, I play for the department. And I would notice that the guys that were on the keto diet, they all were talking about how they felt better. They felt good. Their labs were doing great. And I'm like, you know what? There is something to this, so I really started researching into it. And then as I was researching into it, I'm like, let me just do it. Let me just do it and see how I feel. So I went on that and, like my brain always like, I got to make sure. So I'm constantly researching. And that's where I found, I saw Tom DeLauer. He's the one that I got the keto diet from and his guide and such like that. And as I'm researching, Ken Berry came up, you came up, Paul Saladino came up. And then I kept seeing carnivore. And as I'm doing a keto diet, I noticed that I'm only wanting to eat the meats, like all the vegetables or anything else. I was like not really wanting. So then I was like, I was on the keto diet for about a year, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try this carnivore diet and see how I feel. And as soon as I went on the carnivore diet, I was like, I'm never looking back. I felt so great. Everything was getting better. I was able to push harder in the gym and, working out at the regular weight gym and also at jiu-jitsu. And it was just, I can't turn around now.
Hey folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. If you guys are enjoying these success stories, well, you can become your own success story. You can do that by heading over to CarnivoreDiet. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial and get started today. We're looking forward to supporting you. Our community is wonderful, and we'd love to see your success. How long has that been now, Danny? How long has it been you've been doing this?
It was 2 years in September for the carnivore diet.
So a little over 2 years ago. So I mean, you have the heart attack. They do a stent on you. Assume your cardiac function is improved. You decide to go vegan, and doesn't go well. No energy. You tear your ACL. You feel like maybe you're weaker or something like that. So now you said your labs have changed dramatically since being on carnivore. So how does that affect it? Your triglycerides went down, I'm assuming, or maybe your HDL went up. I don't know what's happening with your total and LDL cholesterol. What happened with that?
Well, my latest one was in April of this year, and my total was 233. My triglycerides were 77. My LDL is 160, and then my HDL is 55. And I have pattern A on the LDL, and the CRP is less than 0.3, and fasting insulin is 2.6.
Yeah, I mean, most of those numbers people would say look very good. The only thing there's still people who would say, hey, the LDL is too high, 160. It should be post-heart attack under 100 or something like that. I mean, this is what I think. And I don't. Do you have a cardiologist? Are you still required to see the cardiologist for follow-up or somebody that follows you?
Yeah. My cardiologist I see, the last time I went in there, he was like, I don't have to see you for at least. I was seeing him every 6 months. At first, I was seeing him every 3 months. And then every 6 months. And then after he saw my labs and everything that was going on, he was like, I don't have to see you till next year. And even the nurse came and was like, "What are you doing here?" You know, like looking at me and was like, "What are you doing here? Like, you're not the typical patient that should be, seen by a cardiologist."
Yeah,
So
I mean,
they were like,
yeah, you're lean and fit, and most of the patients go to see a cardiologist are obese and out of shape typically. How has this affected? I mean, you got a torn ACL. Did you get your ACL reconstructed, or how did that go?
"Yeah, I got it reconstructed. What's it? 2 years ago now? 3 years ago? It would be 3 years ago now."
Did they use what did they use? Your hamstrings or allograft? Or do you remember what they used?
The hamstring. Yeah,
okay.
I wish I would have never done that because it's caused issues. And well, COVID. I had got the surgery, then COVID came along, and I was halfway through my PT, so they shut everything down, and it really caused havoc on my hip, my piriformis and my lower back. It really caused like an imbalance in my hip, and it's been taking, and I still feel it every once in a while now, and it's taken, it hurts sometimes.
Yeah, essentially the different choices you have for, I mean, there's, as an orthopedic surgeon, there's several choices you have to make for fixing the ACL. And some people take patella tendon, some people take hamstring, some people use allografts, which is cadaveric tissue. And so it's kind of an interesting scenario there. But let me ask you, outside of the ACL surgery, which, you unfortunately had while you were doing the vegan diet, how has your jiu-jitsu performance done on carnivore in general?
Oh man, it's like night and day. I mean, I wish I would have known about this from day one, but I mean, even I have 30% damage on my heart from the heart attack. And, before I went on this diet, of course, it was really hard. But after I went on this diet and after a little, after I got transitioned and really got used to the diet, I mean, it's like, I don't need to stop. I just keep going. And it feels like, I could push people through, and it's weird to say, through my cardio, I can push my cardio and, make people slow down before I slow down at 45 years old.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, and as somebody who's, I'm still, totally a new guy in jiu-jitsu. I'm still, very early on. And I notice that, it's, once you get tired, you're pretty done,
That's the ultimate submission right there. Exactly. Is cardio.
You're just basically, you give up after you get too tired and you're running out. So it helps for sure. What do you eat? What does that look like for you today?
I eat mostly beef, ribeyes, beef. I got beef ribs on the smoker right now, skirt steak, burgers. Sometimes I'll have a bacon and eggs, a little bit of cheese. Pretty much beef. Beef is the main thing. That makes me feel the best for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I got a little picanha and a ribeye that I'm going to eat right after this interview, and I'll try to couple that with about half a dozen eggs. And so you'd mentioned before, like years ago, you didn't know how to diet, and you were exercising 3-4 times a day to try to lose weight. Are you struggling to maintain weight now with this diet, or is it more easier?
Actually, I started losing a lot of weight, and I thought I was eating enough. I went down to 170, and I'm 6'2". And then I was like, man, I got to start eating more because I felt a little weak at that weight. So I've been hovering around 180. And at my heaviest, I was 245. I guess when you leave work, like my line of work is so stressful, there's a lot of cortisone in your body. You start holding on to that weight. And as soon as I, stopped working, I started losing weight. But then, like with the keto and carnivore, I started losing weight, I guess, the healthier way, and gaining more muscle. Definitely on this diet, I'm gaining more muscle.
Yeah. Has anybody, that I guess has known you through the years of jiu-jitsu noticed a difference in your performance or anything like that?
Everybody does. They're, like, people would joke around with me and such, and they were like, I think you're better now than you were before you had your heart attack.
Interesting. And then. At my gym, there's half a dozen guys who are doing carnivore now just because, I don't know, because they know me or something like that. But have you persuaded anybody to try that diet since you've been doing this stuff?
Everybody I talk to.
Are they doing it?
It's, and they see like, and mainly the guys in the fire department and also in the gym, like they see what happened to me and they see the transition that I've done. And I get people calling me all the time, texting me or, hit me up on social media and asking me like, what do I do and this and that? Cause they see the difference and it's a huge difference.
How does cause I think I've seen you've got family, kids and stuff like that. I assume, I mean, how's the rest of the family? Are they on board? Are they like, this is weird, or what are their thoughts?
They're mostly on board. My girl, she at first, she wasn't, really on board. And then, she saw the you lead by example, and that's the only way you can really, people see that and they feel it. So she was like, oh, I'll give it a try. She tried it back in February. Well, she had been losing her hair, not like chunks of hair, but every time she would go take a shower, you see like a little bird's nest in the drain. And 2 weeks on the diet, I noticed that there was no hair in the drain, and I called her up, and she was at work, and I called her up, and I was like, hey, did you clean the shower or anything like that? She's like, no. She's like, and I was like, you're not losing hair anymore. And she's like, yeah, I'm not losing hair. 2 weeks onto the diet, she stopped losing her hair, and she had been getting all kind of hair products and all that stuff for her hair, and the only thing that worked was the diet.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people comment that their hair gets thicker, their nails get thicker. I mean, it makes sense. You're just eating better, higher quality protein in many cases. Do you I don't take any supplements. It's basically steak and eggs. I don't really eat much else than that. But I do take an electrolyte because I do a lot of sweating. As you know, jiu-jitsu, you get pretty sweaty, particularly down in Florida. I'm at, you're sweating like crazy. Do you do any electrolyte type stuff, or how do you manage your fluids?
Just Redmond salt, really, for electrolytes. I've been taking extra because I have a cold plunge chest freezer in my house. Mm-hmm. And then I started doing sauna at the gym. I switched to a different gym because I had a sauna there, earlier this year, and so I had been taking extra electrolytes because of that.
And as far as jiu-jitsu is concerned, do you do both gi and no gi, or what is your main?
Yeah, I do gi and no gi, and well, since a heart attack, I haven't done much stand up. Like I used to do a lot of Muay Thai back in the day, and then MMA. But since a heart attack, I haven't really done much of that. But yeah, gi and no gi for sure.
Which one do you prefer out of curiosity?
I prefer different parts of each one, but the gi teaches you a lot of good technique. And then, of course, no gi, you can move faster, and there's different techniques you can use for that. So, Yeah,
I haven't done much no gi. It's all been in the gi. The only thing I don't like about the gi is your fingers get beat up too much. I find that's the biggest thing for me. But anyway, it's
most new people say that. They're like, because you want to hold real hard.
Yeah.
I choose my time when I'm going to hold hard, because I know that if somebody's going to rip the gi out of your hands, I'd rather let go than get my hands all beat up.
Yeah, exactly. I've got one broken finger courtesy of that. But outside of, what have been the overall benefits to you that you've noticed? Anything else outside of, better energy and better body composition, mental health, skin, digestion, anything that's gotten better for you?
Yeah, well, mental health for sure. While I'm going, and when you have something like this happen to you, I think a lot of things come up into your head. I mean, stuff that you weren't even expecting. I went through PTSD, major depression. The PTSD part, of course, I was the last one to, you're one of the last people to kind of be like, I need help. And a real good buddy of mine was like, he had to talk to me about what was going on, and he kind of convinced me. So I went to go get help through a therapist. And as I'm going, they put me through what's called EMDR, and I'm doing EMDR with him. And I was about 2 weeks into doing therapy, and that's when I started the carnivore diet. And 2 weeks into the carnivore diet, I told my therapist, I said, I don't think you need, I need you anymore, because I'm not thinking the same way as I was. And I didn't need him anymore. And that was only 2 weeks into the diet. And the depression really got better. The PTSD, I wasn't thinking the same way as I was before, and it was totally gone.
Yeah, it's interesting. And we're seeing more and more research coming out showing the impact that diet has on mental health. There's a lot of research right now around the ketogenic diet, which Carnivore shares some of the physiology and, the reduction in the processed junk food anyway. But so as far as, because you said you're 180, how much, and I don't know, how active are you? Do like a couple classes a day, or what is your typical schedule like? And how much do you have to eat to maintain that?
Well, I right now I pinched a nerve in my neck about a month and a half ago. So I've been taking it easy. Like this week was the first time I've been back since then, and it wasn't hurting. I mean, it's still sore. It wasn't hurting as much as it has been. But I was, I'm kind of crazy sometimes. I mean, I would go to, the weight gym first thing in the morning, and then I would come home and maybe go for a walk with my daughter, and then I would go to jiu-jitsu. And then later on in the evening, I do like the ATG workout. So that was like my typical day, and that was probably 4 or 5 times a week at least.
So kind of 3 workouts a day, basically, sounds like.
Yeah.
And
I'm
how
crazy.
much, and you have plenty of energy without any carbohydrates or any significant carbohydrates?
Yeah, no carbohydrates at all. That's where I feel my best, without a doubt.
And how much food are you eating? Just out of curiosity, pound, 2 pounds, 3 pounds, something like that.
About 2 to 3 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah. And, 2 meals a day, typically?
Yeah, two meals. I'll get one real big one and then another a little bit smaller in my heavy workout days. But I try to stick to just one meal, but it's kind of hard to get that much food down in one sitting.
Yeah, it can be for sure. What and are you like worried about eating mostly fat or more protein, or how do you sort of parse that out?
I don't even worry about any of that. I just eat what I feel like. I feel like eating this today, and I'm going to eat it. I don't worry about counting anything, and I just whatever I feel like eating, I'm eating it.
And so you said you retired from the fire department. So are you doing anything? I mean, other than are you teaching jiu-jitsu? Is that basically what you're doing right now?
Well, no, I have a 5-year-old, and she missed a cut this year of going into school, so I'm Mr. Mom most of the time. So her and I just, we do stuff throughout the day, and and I try to, of course, educate her on this. She can actually tell adults how to eat right now.
Good for her. Yeah. My kids, as soon as they were able to read and comprehend, I started teaching them about, the value of nutrition and how to read a label and that type of stuff. So that's important and good for you for doing that. Do you, as far as, are you concerned about having a recurrence of a heart attack? I mean, some people would say that, you're on this diet with lots of meat and saturated fat and you had a heart attack already. Are you on any medications? Are they having you take any long-term medications for the stent? Any blood thinners?
Antithrombolytic?
Yeah.
No, I'm off everything. All my medications, I'm completely off. I had spoken to Dr. Nadir Ali.
Mm-hmm.
He has like an Zoom call where you can talk to him.
Right.
Spoke to him about 45 minutes. Went over all my history, all my labs, and all that stuff like that. And he said that if I were a sedentary person, without a heart attack, I'd probably recommend them going on this. But with me, he was like, I told him everything I did, and he said, you're doing just fine. You should be good to go.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm not worried about that. Learning about, cholesterol, of course, something like this happens to you, you got to figure it out. And learning about cholesterol, and we need this in our body. And it's, of course you want to be at the healthy levels, which they are now. Yeah. I'm not worried at all.
You said when you're at your heaviest, you're around 240 pounds or something like that, 245. Where were you at when you had the heart attack? What was your weight then?
I think I was 235 or 240 in that range, somewhere around there.
So you're at near your peak weight, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I have a couple of pictures where they actually you could see the burn mark from the pacer pads, I was hefty back then. And of course, I didn't think I was at the time. I thought I had a little bit of weight to lose, but I definitely had a lot of weight to lose.
Yeah, I can remember being 290 pounds and thinking I was pretty lean and fit and I was strong and I was a good athlete. But then I look at those pictures back then and I'm like, wow, you had a lot more body fat on you than you thought you did. It's kind of funny how men kind of just, I guess, overestimate how good we look, and women do the opposite. They underestimate. It's kind of a funny thing there. But, as far as, advice for other people that struggling with weight, that type of stuff, what do you tell them typically?
Well, I explained like what I went through and then how I'm feeling different and how I'm losing weight, and not just losing weight, but gaining muscle. Like I'm not faking that, I can't fake my heart stopping. You know what I mean? I can't fake what happened to me before. And I'm getting better now, and people are seeing that. So most people that know my story, they're all like, there's something to this. You know what I mean? So they don't question me too much. There's some people that are like, oh, you're crazy for doing that, but there's not too many of those. Yeah,
I mean, blood pressure, I assume, is normal. Did you ever check that?
It's always even through the heart attack, that's always been good.
Yeah. So the 2 to 3 pounds of meat a day has not negatively impacted that. Has there been any negative at all? I mean, can you think of any negatives that have occurred since you've been on the diet?
No, I can't think of a single one. Digestive issues, of course, when you're transitioning over. But other than that, nothing at all. Everything's been positive.
Yeah, a lot of people will say that you're always going to be constipated on a carnivore diet. Is that what your experience has been? Not at all. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Like if I have too much like I had too much dairy a couple of months back, and I had some constipation from it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, oh yeah, I got to stop that because I didn't like that. But I never constipated. Easy to go to the bathroom. It's way easier.
Yeah, and that's one thing I've seen some people comment things like they eat a lot of cheese and they sometimes feel like they get constipated. So maybe there's something unique about that. Is there any times when you're like, I want to eat something else, or I mean, do you feel pretty satisfied with what you're doing now?
No, I'm pretty satisfied. Like like for my daughter's birthday, I got a 16-year-old and a 5-year-old. For their birthdays, I might have a little piece of cake. Every once in a while, I'll have an adult beverage. But that's few and far between. Like, we in the pipes and drums, we'll go and do St. Patty's Day and everybody be drinking. And, some years I'm like, nah, I don't want anything, and I'm just fine. Every once in a while I'll have one, but, I don't have any urges for it or anything. And I used to, being in the fire department and going out to different functions, it's like every function you go to is drinking here and drinking there, and I was on board with them at the time. And, I had stopped drinking for a while there for like 3 years. And then now just every once in a while, and I'm perfectly fine.
You said, did you say you play the bagpipes? I think I heard you say that.
Yes.
Did you ever do like Highland Games or stuff like that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I used to.
Yeah, I remember hearing so you do the caber throws.
Yeah, I used to compete as one of the heavy athletes, heavy events athletes, and did that for about 7 years. So I used to hear bagpipes would ring through my ears for like days afterwards. Just couldn't get it out of your mind. So it's interesting to see. How did you get into doing bagpipes?
There was a guy that got hired in the fire department, and he was actually ranked number 2 piper in the world at one point. He got hired, and it was perfect. I was getting off shift. He was coming on shift. So I just started taking lessons from him, and the guy's really good. He's a great piper, and he's a great teacher, and overall great dude. Started learning that way, and it's been fun ever since. And I get to, see the guys every because I lost the career that I loved, and it's good to get back and see the guys.
It's interesting. I can imagine. I'm just wondering how until you get good at the bagpipes, when you're not very good, it's got to be interesting to hear. Did your family complain when you were practicing, or? Oh
God, yeah. Yeah, they did. They still do now, but we got into a new house, and the people here before had closed in the garage and put like a music room. So it's my music / workout room.
Oh, okay.
And it's got like padding in there and such, so it's not
relatively soundproof. Yeah, my youngest son has been learning the piano, and he's actually starting to get pretty good where it doesn't, it sounds decent now. So, but before you just hear the practice, you hear the same old song over and over and over and over again. But tip my hat to anybody that's good at music, because I have zero ability at that, other than maybe pressing the button on the play on the music selection. But thoughts in general about, there's thought that we need to give up eating cows for the environment. There's some people that say, well, see, there was a hurricane in Florida, and that's because we're eating too many cows or something like that. What are your thoughts on that sort of stuff? Changing your diet to save the planet?
That's all propaganda. That's all BS. I mean, they're on this planet just like us. We're breathing air. They're breathing air. They're eating what they're supposed to be eating. That's all. You can look at other areas and save the climate better than looking at the animals that are supposed to be here. Things developed by industries and even healthcare and all that stuff like that are causing more damage to this environment and animals.
And then as far as, because some people ask this, are you specifically eating organ meats in your diet? Are you specifically eating only grass-finished animals? How do you do that?
I actually, I'm looking for the best deals is really what I'm looking for, so I haven't had, when I first started the keto diet, they were talking about grass-fed, grass finished, and I started doing that through like Butcher Box, but then after a while I'm like, I don't even like the taste of this because there's not enough fat in there for me. And and the organs, I do eat organs from time to time, but it's not a daily basis. Like I'll eat liver, heart, what else have I eaten? Tongue. I've eaten tongue. It's actually not that bad. It tastes like ribs. but not on a regular basis.
And so you eat, you know, whatever's the most affordable from grain finished, you know, whatever tastes the best and has the most fat for you, basically. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I ordered a half a cow from a local rancher, and of course there's not a whole lot of steaks in that. So I have roast and you know, chopped meat. And I still have not most of it, but I still have the cow still left in my freezer. But I like steak, so I'll go and find the best deals for the steaks around just different areas or different stores, and like even the regular supermarket. If there's a good deal, I'll go down there, pick up some stuff there.
And what is, you know, Central Florida? What is it? What are some steak prices? Can you give me an idea what's a good price on, say, ribeye steaks?
Well, there's this one butcher that it was $9 a pound, and so that was really good. And then now they're doing for $15 a pound. During Labor Day, I think I got it for $8 a pound for ribeyes, and I bought like 15 steaks that when I found that deal.
Yeah, I remember when I was in Southern California. Surprisingly, I would see ribeyes, you know, for under $5 a pound, which I thought was quite interesting. They would have that. Usually, there was a store called Ralph's. It would often be $4.77 a pound, and so here, I think in the, you know, Washington State area, the best I see is probably about $9 a pound. I'm thinking that's, you know, when I go through there, and occasionally I can't, you know, it's kind of funny. I can't go into a grocery store without walking through the meat aisle. I'll have to go there to get something like some sort of cleaning product or eggs or something. And I always walk through the meat aisle, just look. If they got something that's a good price, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get that. So, you know, I usually walk out of there with a pack of meat. So that's, you know, even
I did the same thing. I went in there for batteries, and I was like, oh, well, I got to go to the meat market and see what's
out there. Right. Yeah. You can never know. And I've got, you know, just sometimes I'll buy a big brisket and throw it in my freezer. And unfortunately, I've got now 2 freezers in my garage full of meat. And so it's a good situation to be.
That's a great feeling.
Well, I'll tell you what, Danny, is there anything else you want to share? I know we kind of covered quite a bit. Anything else you want to share that we might want to be interested in?
Jiu-jitsu saves lives. If you ever want to get into a sport, jiu-jitsu, because I had the collateral circulation, and it was all due to me pushing myself for so many years. Because, like, you know, not too many young people have that. It's usually in the older populations.
Yeah, I'm sold. So, I mean, I love it. I mean, I have a blast. You know, I had to take this week off. But, you know, I can start back up next week. But it's a stress reliever. It's mentally stimulating. It's physically, obviously, very challenging. It's a lot of fun. You learn how to defend yourself. It's you know, you can get beat up a little bit doing it. That's a downside, you know, because, you know, depending on how hard you go on the rolling, which I tend to go pretty hard. It's just the way I am. I usually try to pick the hardest people in the room, and usually they end up kicking my butt, but it's good for me. All right, Danny. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for keep up the good work. Keep the message out there. You know, it's always wonderful to see you in the meetings, and thank you so much. I'm gonna go eat some steaks, man. Thanks.
I do have a social media that if anybody wants to contact me.
Yeah, go ahead. Of course. Yeah, go ahead. Where is that?
I think it's FD Rescue.
FD Rescue?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So Fire Department Rescue, is that what it's called?
Yep.
Got it. All right. Well, perfect. Well, thanks, Danny. Appreciate it. Everybody else, we'll see you guys tomorrow. You all have a great day. Bye-bye now.
I appreciate it. Thank you.